Hello students, today in this video lecture we would be discussing a poem by Nissim Ezekiel. The title of the poem is Night of the Scorpion. Let me mention that this poem is in the syllabus of BA English Honours Semester 5 and the course number is DSE 1A and the name of the course is Indian Writing in English, Poetry and Drama. As you all know that Nissim Ezekiel is an important name in the list of modern English poets. Actually, the tradition of modern English poetry was started by Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel was a Jew by birth, by faith, and it was in Jewish background that he was born and brought up. He had a fairly good education. He studied literature in Bombay University. Thereafter, he had an occasion to go to England for higher studies. In England, he studied primarily literature, but he also demonstrated his interest in psychology and philosophy. There, he had the opportunity to study some of the best teachers of philosophy available at that time. While studying in England, he showed keen interest in other activities like painting, theatre, cinema, and these interests came very handy later on in his life when he chose his profession as a journalist, thereafter as a teacher, professor, and a poet. He was born in 1924 and he died in 2004. So, he lived for about 80 years. He died at a ripe age. And he had variety of experiences in his life which get reflected in his poetry. Coming back from England, he joined the Illustrated Weekly as an assistant editor. Thereafter, he was also associated with a number of publications like the Indian Pen, Quest, Imprint, and Poetry Today. In all these journals, he tried to give as much space as possible to the publication of poetry in English. And it is during these publications that he encouraged a new kind of writing poetry. You would see before Nissim Ezekiel, we had poets like Aurobindo Ghosh, Rabindranath Tagore, Sarojini Naidu. But they all were poets in old tradition, like Sarojini Naidu and others. They tried to imitate the Western Romantics, the British Romantics. Tagore was a saint poet who saw himself in the line of great poets of India like Valmiki, Kalidas, Tulsidas, Kabir. Nissim Ezekiel started a new tradition, both by writing poetry himself and also by encouraging others to write poetry in a new mood. A number of publications to his name include A Time to Change, 60 Poems, The Unfinished Man, The Exact Name, Hymns in Darkness, Latter-day Psalms, etc. Incidentally, it was Latter-day Psalms which was published in 1982, for which he was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983. In 1988, he was awarded by the President of India with Padma Shri. Now, all these awards and recognitions speak volumes about the man and his achievement. As I have already mentioned, that he was a man who started a new tradition in Indian English poetry, which we call modern poetry. As a modern poet, he was very conscious of his language, very conscious of his expression, very conscious of the images, and he was always trying to experiment something new in his poetry. As he spent most of his time in Bombay and different cities of London, in most cases, the images that we get in his poetry are those of city life, those of the lives as we see in towns and cities. But here, incidentally, the poem under consideration, that is Night of Scorpion, we get a contrast. This poem has nothing about a city or a town. It is completely about a village, a countryside, where people still live in almost the 19th century mode of living and thinking. On the surface, this poem seems to be a narrative poem. In this poem, the poet narrates an event in which his mother has been stung by a scorpion. And thereafter, a number of things happen, a flurry of things happen, and all those things have been detailed out in this poem. And finally, in the last line of the poem, the description gets a twist. We find a twist in the last line of the poem, and immediately the poem, which is apparently the description of an event, becomes a poetic event. Now, what is that twist? We'll come to it later. I'm sorry I have forgotten to ask you to have the text of the poem before you, but I am urging you now that, you can have a pause, you can pause the video and get the copy of the poem in order to follow my lecture. The poem is Night of the Scorpion. See the title. It seems the scorpion is the hero. The story that the poet is going to narrate has a hero, has a protagonist, and the scorpion is the protagonist. So the title suggests the scorpion to be the chief character, the main character of this narrative, of this poem. Incidentally, when we read the poem, the scorpion is nowhere to be seen. We cannot see the scorpion. Nobody has seen it. But what is there which one can see is the impact of the scorpion's presence in the past. We will see the line and things will become clear. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. Now the poem is a kind of recollection. The incident has taken place long back. Perhaps at that time, the poet was a child. Now he has grown up. But he remembers the event very vividly. All those images are alive before him. So he says, I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. So when he was a child, an incident had taken place, an accident had taken place in which the poet's mother had been stung by a scorpion. So the poet remembers it very well. And he shares that recollection with us as readers. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Now the scorpion, and thereafter in the second sentence he says the 10 hours of steady rain, it had been raining for long, for 10 hours, continuous rain, heavy downpour. And that heavy downpour had compelled a scorpion to take shelter in the house, because water creates problem for such creatures like snake, like rats, scorpions. So they tend to take shelters where there is no water. The scorpion had done exactly that. So in order to overcome a threat that the scorpion felt in the water, the scorpion took shelter under the sack of rice. And the poet's mother happened to visit that place in the dark. Remember, it's night. What happened that, parting with his poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. So as soon as the poet's mother went there, and perhaps she had a contact with the scorpion, and the scorpion felt threatened, and in its defense, it stung his mother. And it is very poetically and beautifully described by the poet that the scorpion parted with his poison, because every scorpion accumulates certain amount of poison with it for its defense. So that accumulated poison was parted with by the scorpion. That is, the scorpion stung the poet's mother and it deposited that accumulated poison into her body. And feeling threatened, there in the poet's house also, the scorpion again went back into the rain. Perhaps the scorpion felt that the rain is a lesser threat to its life than the house of the poet. So the scorpion goes back. Here, what is to be kept in mind and what is to be underlined is the use of his. The poet takes the scorpion as a human being. So instead of using the pronoun it or its, the poet is using the pronoun his, indicating or suggesting that the scorpion is a significant being comparable to human. And as soon as the mother of the poet was stung by the scorpion, she cried, and out because of her cry, all those in the neighborhood, they all rushed to her house. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. So as soon as the poet's mother cried, the peasants in the neighborhood, they heard her cry, they heard her call, and they all rushed to the poet's house in groups, in large numbers. And their number is so high that they are being compared with flies, and their groups are being called swarms. So they all arrive there and they all start trying to do their bit in order to alleviate the pain that the poet's mother was suffering. So they are chanting mantras, they are calling gods to come down and help her to overcome the pain that she is experiencing, the excruciating pain that she was going through because of the scorpion bite. With candles and with lanterns. Remember, it was night, it was raining, and it was not a town, so there was no electricity. So all of them have assembled in the poet's house, having candles and lanterns in their hands. On the mud-baked walls, they search for him. So first of all, what are they doing? They are trying to locate and find out the scorpion. So with candles and lanterns in their hand, they are looking for the scorpion in the house. And while doing that, they are causing variety of shapes in the form of shadows on the wall. They click their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. Now, all the peasants who have assembled in the poet's house, they are anxious that if the scorpion kept moving, the poison would also be rising in the poet's mother's body. So it is very important that the scorpion is caught and it is made to stay at one place. And it is for that reason that they all are searching for it. And sometimes they are producing a click-like sound, like something like that they have not found out the scorpion, expressing their disappointment and also their sympathy with the poet's mother, who is suffering that excruciating pain because of the scorpion. Now here, when the scorpion is nowhere found in the house, they are praying. They pray. May he sit still, they said. They uttered the mud word that may the scorpion sit still somewhere so that the poison would not be moving in the body. May the sins of your previous birth be burnt away tonight, they said. Now, in order to console her, they are trying to say that she must have done something wrong in her previous birth. And therefore, the fact that she is experiencing this pain is actually a way in which she would be she would burn away all the sins that she would have committed in her previous birth. So suffering is linked to some deeds or misdeeds in previous birth. And this is what we call law of karma in Indian tradition. So here, the suffering in this world is thought to be an incident in the cosmic karmic process of life. The misfortune of your next birth, they said, may the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world. So either it is because of some sin in the previous birth, or by experiencing this suffering, the poet's mother has been able to avoid some kind of accident that she might have suffered in the next birth, coming birth. So from both sides, it is made a karmic act. Now this shows the kind of belief which guides the people in villages even today. And I told you earlier in the very beginning that this poem is a contrast. Here there is no urban images. The poet talks about the life that people actually live in countryside, in villages. May the sum of all evil, balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good, become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire. Now, all those villagers, they are ordinary folks, most of them of illiterate, but see that they are speaking like philosophers. And they say that may this poison which has entered her body would purify her flesh. Okay. In India, in our Indian Hindu tradition, there is a dichotomy between flesh, which stands for body, and soul. The life at the physical level is of inferior quality. The life of spirituality is of higher order. So here the poet expects the poison to purge her flesh, to purify her flesh, because the flesh is associated with desire. So the poet calls it your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition. So both the desire and ambition, these are the things which are impediments in our spiritual progress. So perhaps here, the so-called physical pain that the poet's mother is experiencing is a good thing in disguise. It is purifying her flesh. It is purifying her spirit also. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. So the poet's mother is sitting in the middle, and all the peasants have surrounded her, encircled her, and they all are cool and calm, showing a very thoughtful face that, well, they understand everything. They have understood the scorpion, the scorpion's biting, the pain that the poet's mother is suffering, and the cause and consequence of that suffering. And it is because of this that all those peasants are wearing a face of calmness. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors. Now, as the news is spread in the village, from your immediate neighbors, the message would be communicated to the neighbors who are their neighbors. Okay. So the neighbor, from your immediate neighbor to the next neighbor, to the next neighbor, to the next neighbor. So, as the message is spreading in the village, more and more people are coming. And they all are carrying candles, they all are carrying lanterns. And with those candles and lanterns, they also bring insects. Why? Because it's rainy season. And in rainy season, candles, lanterns attract a lot of insects. So they all are carrying a large number of insects. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. Now, the parents are having different kinds of discussions. Sometimes they are silent, sometimes they are speaking, but the suffering of the poet's mother continues. She is suffering all through because it is she who is experiencing the pain because of the venom that the scorpion has deposited into her body. In the meantime, the poet's father enters. The poet's father is not an ordinary villager. He is a well-educated person and therefore he is skeptic. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in anything to be certain. And he is irrational. He is a rationalist. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessings. So, see the contrast. He is a rationalist. He is a skeptic. But in spite of that, he is cursing and blessing like ordinary village folks. But as a rationalist, he is also trying to treat her in a proper manner. So what does he do? He uses variety of powders, mixture, herb and hybrid. The poet says, my father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb and hybrid. So he is using variety of chemicals, mixing them in different proportions, expecting that they would be able to neutralize the poisonous effect of the scorpion's biting. But none of them works. In that process, the poet also uses paraffin, kerosene oil. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. So he dropped certain amount of paraffin oil on that toe which had been stung by the scorpion, and he put a match to it. And as a result, she gets burnt, and the poet and the poet's father expects that the burning sensation at the biting place would burn the effect of the poison as well. But does that happen? No. I was the flame feeding on my mother. So, because of the paraffin oil, the poet's mother's toe kept burning. It remained aflame for a certain period of time, and the poet kept watching. At the same time, the poet says, I was the holy man, perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. The poet also was a sadhu, a holy man who was uttering some mantra, hoping that the mantra, that incantation would be able to tame the impact of the poison, would be able to stop the spread of poison and relieve her of the pain that she was experiencing. Variety of things like the ones that the poet has described kept on happening, people kept on doing, but nothing happened immediately. Nothing provided an immediate relief to the poet. After 20 hours in natural process. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. The poet's mother stopped experiencing the pain that she was doing, and she felt relieved. Now, for 20 hours, the poet's mother, who had been bitten by the scorpion, kept experiencing the pain. But what is the beauty of the life of a village is that all the neighbors, all the peasants, irrespective of whether their efforts bore any fruit, they kept helping her. They kept trying that the poet's mother is relieved of the pain, the unbearable pain that she was experiencing. So it is this beauty. The villagers, the simple-minded peasants, they cannot do anything which would provide the poet's mother, the sufferer, with immediate relief. But they do not leave her in agony alone. They do not leave her in tragedy alone. So as long as she is in tragedy, all the neighborhood, all those living in the neighborhood, they all are there with her. Finally, what happens? That it lost its sting, and when the poet's mother was relieved of the pain that she had, what does she say? And it is this utterance of the poet's mother which makes the simple narrative of an event a poem. She says, "My mother